Hello, everyone. It is Monday. Exciting weekend, right? We had Halloween, we had Warhammer Day, we had my new Warhammer stream on Saturday with Jessica, which was great. Thanks to everybody who showed up for that. Lots of subscribers, lots of gift subscriptions, which was awesome. It's always cool to see stuff like that. Yeah. I've got my YouTube channel is starting. I'm finally starting to export past streams over to YouTube and actually then get them online. So that'll be happening slowly but surely. There's a lot of talk these days about, like, if you're a streamer, what else can you do to get eyes on what you're doing? Because obviously, yes, I do have VODs on Twitch, but like nobody's really going to find those in any substantive way, and it's hard to link to them and have discoverability there. So the idea is, well, get all your stuff on YouTube, because then people can go there and see your things the 22 23 hours a day that you're not online. So okay, I'll try that. I've got a big week of streaming this week coming up, but let's get started today, because there are some really good stories coming up here in Ovid's Metamorphoses. The last couple times when I looked ahead and I make little notations in my book about, like, read this story, skip this story, read this story. I don't think I marked any to skip in the next couple chapters, because they're all so good. So we're going to dive right in. If you have any questions, please note them in chat, and I'll get to them at a good stopping point. And yes, you can enjoy looking at some different toys behind me. All right, we were talking about... Oh, we did the story of Pygmalion, which ended up being very brief. And Pygmalion is talking about... Okay, right. So Pygmalion had sex with his statue, who became a real girl, or at least the real body of a girl. Yeah. And they had a daughter named Paphos, and an island was named after her. And then her son was Cinyras. And so we're going to read the story of Cinyras and Mira. Let me write the names out. Yeah, it's super creepy. Now, and this story is a doozy. Her son was Cinyras. Had he been childless, he might have been a happier man. The story is terrible, I warn you. Fathers, daughters, had better skip this part. Or, if you like my songs, distrust me here and say it never happened. Or, if you do believe it, take my word that it was paid for. So this is one of the times when sort of Ovid interjects and is like, I'm telling the story here, but you might not want to listen to it. That nerd, very, very accurate prediction. Nature, it may be, permits such things to happen. I would offer our land congratulations that it lies so far away from abominations. Panchaea, rich in cinnamon and balsam, in frankincense and costmary, in flowers of every kind, has one more tree, remember, perhaps not worth its price, the myrrh. Now Mira, Cinyras' daughter, Cupid claimed, had never been hurt by darts of his, nor had his torches kindled her fire. That was the work of the Furies, or one of them, with Stygian, snake, and firebrand. Hating a father is a crime, but surely loving like this is a greater crime than hatred. Mira had many suitors. All the East had sent its ardent princes, eager rivals for Mira's bed. Make a selection, Mira. Choose one of them. They are many. Rule out only one man of all the world. Mira herself knew her own wickedness and fought against it. What kind of thing is this that I am planning? O gods, I pray you, keep me decent, keep me devoted as I should be to my parents, respectful of their rights. Keep off this sin, this crime. Or is it a crime? Devotion cannot condemn such love as crime. The beasts, I notice, mate as they will. And no one calls a heifer disgraced to have her father on her back. And no one thinks a filly should not welcome her sire as stallion. The ram goes into ewes he has begotten, and the birds are treaded by cocks whose treading gave them life. How happy they are to be so free. But human culture has made malignant laws, laws against nature, envious, jealous laws. Yet there are people, they say, where mothers wed their sons, and daughters sleep with their fathers, so that natural love is doubled. Ugh. No such luck is mine. I might have been native to such countries. Here I am, frustrated by geography. Yeah. Hello, Emma. You've come at a perfect time. We're getting a long treatise here on why incest should be cool. It's natural. Why do I keep thinking of such matters? Foolish fancies, leave me alone. He is worthy to be loved, loved as a father. Were I not his daughter, I might have slept with Kinnerus. He is mine one way, not mine another. His very closeness keeps him far off. If I were foreign born, my power would be greater. I had better go from my home, my country, shun this passion, this crime that keeps me here, that keeps me watching my Kinnerus, touching him and talking with him, and kissing him if nothing else is granted. What else is there to look for? Virgin, wanton, all names, all titles vanish in confusion. A mother's rival and a father's mistress, sister of sons and mother of your brothers. Oh, it's getting complicated. Have you no fear of the sisters, the grim furies with the black snakes for hair, whose cruel torches threaten the eyes and faces of the guilty? You have, so far, not sinned in body, Mira. Try not to sin in mind. Do not imagine embrace a natural law forbids. You want it, I know, but fact forbids. And he is righteous, heedful of moral sanctions. And I wish he had my kind of passion burning in him. So apparently, the dad here is like, I don't know. How do you keep track of how people are related? That's a good question. There's a lot of, sisters of sons, brother. Yeah, it's complicated. And this she told herself, and Kinnerus did not know what to do. So many suitors, all worthy men, awaiting her decision. He named them over to her, asked her questions, which one of them she would most prefer as husband. She made no answer, only stared, and seemed confused in mind, and wept. And Kinnerus thought this was natural for a girl, and kindly, bade her not weep, and dried her cheeks, and kissed her. That made her happy. So, what kind of husband? A man like you, she said. He praised her answer, not knowing what it really meant. Be such a good girl always, dear, he told her. And Mira, like a good girl, kept her eyes downcast, too conscious of her guilt in goodness. Whew. And midnight came, with sleep to heal men's troubles, to ease their bodies. Mira could not sleep, tossed all night, unsatisfied, renewing her passionate wants, despaired, gave up, again wanting to try, new shame, and new desire, found no way out. We've seen this a couple times in that during the night, all of these warring emotions and feelings will come upon a character, mostly girls, but not only, and they'll have like these internal dialogues about what to do. I love him. No, I can't, but maybe this, maybe that. As a great tree, deep wounded by axe blows, with the final stroke not given, wavers which way to fall, and every side may be its dangerous earthward rush, so Mira, weakened by various wounds, uncertain, faltering, leaned one way, then another, torn with conflict. A love like hers, with neither rest nor limit, had no way out, but death. Death would be pleasant. She rose. She swung a noose from the high rafter, crying, "Farewell, dear Kinnerus! Understand the reason for my death!" Ghastly pale, fitting the noose around her neck. Some stir of action or the murmur of her words reached the old nurse who watched outside her doorway, and she came flying, swung the door wide open, saw the grim preparations, screamed, and tore her garments, beat her breasts, and in a moment snatched loose the rope, and then found time for weeping, for holding Mira in her arms, for asking all kinds of questions. Welcome, Cameron. Yes, we are diving right into some spicy stories. This girl has fallen in love with her father, has considered it all night long, and has attempted to kill herself. But Mira would not answer, would not look up, sullen and grieving only for her own slowness. And the nurse insisted, making a show of her gray hair, her skinny, old, useless breasts, begging her by her cradle, her baby milk, to tell her all her trouble. She turned away and groaned, but the old nurse was bound to find out more, and promised more than passive listening. "Tell me, let me help you. Old as I am, I have some wit." Is it madness? So we're not getting a... It's not pretty, the description of this poor old nurse. She's so old, but she still has some uses. She's not completely obsolete. Is it madness? I have a way to cure it by charms and simples. Had someone put an evil spell on you? We can work it off with some magic. Are the gods angry at you? Let sacrifice appease them. What other reasons could there be? The fortunes of all your house go well. Father and mother prosper in health. Hearing the name of father, Mira gave one long sigh, no clue to the nurse of the evil in her heart. But she suspected some love affair, and with persistent purpose kept up her questions, holding Mira close with her arms to her old breast. She's very old, you know. Very old. "I know," she said, "you are in love. And in this business, don't worry, I can help. And no one, not even your father, will ever know." Ugh. Just all of that needling. Old, yeah, 25. But Mira tore herself loose and flung herself face down, crying into her pillow, "Go away! Spare my unhappy shame!" But the nurse only urged and insisted, "Go away or stop it! Stop asking why I grieve! It is a crime, the thing you are trying to learn. A crime, I tell you!" The poor old woman, horrified, held out her arms, all trembling with the weight of years. She's old. The load of fear, and fell at her feet, imploring, coaxing and wheedling, sometimes even trying to scare her into telling, making threats to tell about the noose, about the try at suicide, and giving reassurance of all her help, if only she can know who the man is. And Mira raised her head to weep on the nurse's bosom, trying often to get the truth out, failing, hiding her face in the robes again, finally saying only, "Oh, mother, mother, happy in your husband." That was enough, and a cold horror crept through the old woman's limbs. She knew. She tried as best she could to banish, if she might, so mad a passion. Mira knew the warning was given in all truthfulness, but could not resign herself to living without having the one she loved. "Live then," the other told her. "You will have your..." But she could not say it. "Father." Yeah. Who wrote this and what was wrong with him? Well, remember, where all of these stories, the purpose of them is to get to some sort of transformation, right? All of these metamorphoses. Something is going to be transformed. I mean, they basically told us at the beginning of this one that, that it's gonna be Mira. She's gonna be a tree, but we have to get through all of this horror to get there. Whew. The time arrived when all the married women held festival for Ceres. Robed in white, they brought the first fruits, wheaten ears as garlands, and for 9 nights to love a man or touch him was a forbidden thing. And the king's wife, Queen Kenchrys, was one of them, most faithful in those mysterious rites. And the king's bed was empty, and the nurse, losing no time, found him a little drunk, and filled his ears with a story of a girl who loved him truly. Named, she made up a name and praised her beauty. Kinnerus asked one question. How old was she? Just Mira's age. Go get her! So she went back home to Mira, crying out, My child, rejoice! We conquer. In the heart of Mira there was not all rejoicing, for her mind was filled with sad foreboding. But I could not say there was no rejoicing and be truthful. Yeah, he's drunk. He's mostly drunk, not fully drunk. And I mean, it's during the festival. His wife is not going to sleep with him for 9 whole nights. So, you got to look for something else to do. It was the time when all things rest. In heaven, the driver of the oxen turned his team to their downward course. The golden moon was gone, the stars were in black cloud, and the night smoldered without the usual fires, as Mira came on to her guilty deed. 3 times she stumbled at the edge of the threshold, and 3 times the owl wailed out his cry to warn her. But she came on, her shame diminished in the night's dark shadow. Her left hand holds her nurse's hand, the other gropes through the dark ahead. She comes to the door, opens the door, goes in, and her knees tremble. Her face is pale and bloodless, and her spirit deserts her as she goes. Closer and closer she nears her crime, and more she shudders, repents her boldness, wishes she might now turn back unknown. But the old woman leads her along, unwilling, to where the bedside towers, where Kinnerus waits. Take her, she is your own, she says, and is gone, leaving the two together, doomed and devoted. On the bed of incest, the father takes his daughter. Words are spoken to ease her virgin fears, to make her trembling a little less. He might have called her daughter, knowing how young she was. She might have answered, Dear father. So the names were right and proper to suit the guilty deed. Yeah, she's old. It's a thing. Filled with her father, she left the chamber, carrying in her womb the seed of crime conceived, and she came back the next night, and the next, till Kinnerus, after so many nights together, eager to see the girl who loved him, called for lights, and so discovered his love, his crime, his daughter. He could not speak, but drew the shining sword out of the sheath, and Mira fled, and darkness and the blind night's favor kept death off. She wandered through the wide fields, beyond Arabian palm trees, beyond Panchaea, till, with 9 months gone, in utter weariness, she came to rest in the Sabaean land. Heavy of womb, not knowing what to pray for, torn between sickness of life and fear of death, she summoned her desperation in words of prayer. O gods, if any gods will listen, I deserve punishment surely, I do not refuse it. But lest, in living, I offend the living, offend the death in death, drive me away from either realm, change me somehow, refuse me both life and death. There was a god to listen, her last petition had its god to answer, for even as she spoke, the earth closed over her legs, and slanting down between her toes a root took hold, supporting the tall trunk. The bones were stronger, and their central marrow suffered no change, but the blood was lymph or water, or watery sap, and the arms became long branches, the fingers twigs, the skin rough bark. The tree had found the pregnant belly, held in tight the swelling breasts, was on its way to cover shoulders and neck, and she could not bear the waiting, bent her face down to meet it, plunged her features into the bark, until her human senses had vanished with her human form, but still she weeps, and the warm teardrops trickle down, not without honor, for that distillation still keeps her name. Men call it Mir, no age will ever forget the word. Within the wood, the child, conceived in guilt, had grown toward life, sought its way out. The swollen bowl dilated under the strain of the weight, and with no voice to call Lucina, like a woman in labor. The tree contorted, cried, and wept. The goddess stood near in pity, reached out helping hands, sang charms to aid the birth, and the tree cracked open. The bark was split, the burden loosed. A baby gave his first cries. The naiads cradled him on the soft leaves and used his mother's tears to wash him. Even envy praised his beauty. He looked so much like Cupid in a painting. All you would need to make them come out even would be to give a quiver to both, or neither. And that is the end of that story. Yes. Yes, all of the above. Dad was a little drunk, but he knew that the nurse was bringing him a girl to sleep with who was his daughter's age, very specifically. Yeah. And yeah, I don't believe we ever hear any more about the father, him being punished in any meaningful way or being turned into anything. Yeah, that's the end of his story as well. So it could have been worse. I'm sure in some way, yes, it could have been worse. Incest tree, baby. Yeah. Whew, okay. So now we move on to the child of the tree. And yeah, so we get this interesting description of the myrrh tree. I don't know that I've ever seen one in person. I don't know its characteristics, but apparently it has rough bark. It is some form of watery sap that, again, ancient people could have said, oh, this has watery sap. It's like tears. Maybe someone was transformed into this for some horrible reason. But yes, we do have our transformation. So now we move on to the story of Adonis. And that will lead into a few stories of Adonis. Yeah, like 3 in a row. Time in its stealthy gliding cheats us all without our notice. Nothing goes more swiftly than do the years. That little boy whose sister became his mother, his grandfather's son, is now a youth, and now a man, more handsome than he had ever been, exciting even the goddess Venus, and thereby avenging his mother's passion. Teary sap too, obviously incest tree, baby. Yeah, there is, now again, like, Ovid set out in this book to tell just a ton of stories, a ton of mythological stories, and the theme for it is Metamorphoses. So yeah, I don't know originally where all these stories came together. But yeah, yes, the incest tree baby is now Adonis. Let's see if there's a note on this. Yeah, Adonis, son of Mira by her father Cinyras, loved by Venus. That's the entire description at the end. Cupid, it seems, was playing quiver on shoulder when he kissed his mother, and one barb grazed her breast. She pushed him away, but the wound was deeper than she knew. Deceived, charmed by Adonis's beauty, she cared no more for Cythera's shores, nor Paphos' sea-ringed island, nor Cnidos, where fish teem, nor high Amathus, rich in its precious ores. She stays away even from heaven. Adonis is better than heaven. Oh, yeah. She is beside him always. She has always, before this time, preferred the shadowy places, preferred her ease, preferred to improve her beauty by careful tending. But now, across the ridges, through woods, through rocky places thick with brambles she goes, more like Diana than Venus, bare-kneed and robes tucked up. So we get this cute little scene that... So Venus she's embracing her son, Cupid, and that rascal Cupid, normally he's shooting his love arrows at other gods and goddesses, but this time, accidentally, one of the arrows scraped her while she was hugging him, and then she saw Adonis and fell in love with him. And Adonis, at this point at least, he's a man's man. He lives out in the wilderness. He traipses around, and Yeah, with his wood. He's in the woods, and Venus loves him so much that she goes and hangs out in the woods with him, which is very much not like her to do. She cheers the hounds, hunts animals, at least such timid creatures as deer and rabbits. No wild boars for her, no wolves, no bears, no lions. And she warns him to fear them too, as if there might be good in giving him warnings. Be bold against the timid, the running creatures, but against the bold ones, boldness is dangerous. Do not be reckless. I share whatever risk you take. Be careful. Do not attack those animals which nature has given weapons, lest your thirst for glory may cost me dear. Beauty and youth and love make no impression on bristling boars and lions, on animal eyes and minds. The force of lightning is in the wild boar's tusks, and tawny lions are worse than thunderbolts. I hate and fear them. He asks her why. She answers, I will tell you, and you will wonder at the way old crime leads to monstrosities. I will tell you sometime, but not now, for I am weary. All this hunting is not what I am used to. Here's a couch of grassy turf and a canopy of poplar. I would lie there with you. And she lay there making a pillow for him of her breast, and kisses for her story's punctuation. So now we get into this section called Venus Tells Adonis the Story of Atalanta, which is a really good one. Atalanta. Yeah, Venus is all about hanging out with Adonis, running through the woods, but she gets tired. She's not used to this kind of stuff. She probably is wearing high heels, not the right clothing for this at all. Yeah, no incest. You may have heard, she said, about a girl who could outrun the swiftest men. The story is very true. She really could outrun them. It would be hard to say, though, whether her speed or beauty earned more praise. You can't be powerful and skilled and not also be beautiful, of course. She was very lovely. She asked the oracle one day to give her advice on marriage. You don't need a husband, the god replied. Avoid that habit. Still, I know you will not. You will keep your life and lose yourself. So Atalanta, frightened, lived in the shadowy woods, a single woman, harshly rejecting urgent throngs of suitors. I know, right? You don't need a husband. Shocking. No one gets me who cannot beat me running. Race me, she told them. Wife and marriage chamber go to the winner, but the slow ones get the booby prize of death. Yes, the booby prize of death. Those are my terms. Identity? That's weird. We don't need no husbands. So race me. If you beat me, I will marry you. If you lose, you die. The terms were harsh, but beauty has such power that those harsh terms were met by many suitors, foolhardy fellows. Watching the cruel race, Hippomenes had some remarks to make. Is any woman worth it? These young men strike me as very silly. But when he saw her, her face, her body naked, with such beauty as mine is or as yours would be, Adonis, if you were woman, he was struck with wonder, threw up his hands and cried, I beg your pardon, young men. I judged you wrongly. I did not know the value of the prize. Kind of cringy. And he caught fire from his own praising, hoped that no young runner would beat her, feared they might, was worried, jealous. Why don't I try? He thought. God helps the bold. And swifter than his thought, the girl sped by on winged feet, swifter than Scythian arrow, yet not too swift for a young man's admiration, and running made her lovelier. The breeze bore back the streaming pinions of her sandals, her hair was tossed back over ivory shoulders, the colored ribbons fluttered at her knees, and a light flush came over her girlish body, the way a crimson awning over marble tints it in pastel color. As he watched her, she crossed the finish line, received the crown of victory, and the beaten suitors, groaning, were led away to death. So yeah, so even the act of her running just makes her that much hotter. Hippomenes, undaunted, came from the crowd. He fixed his eyes on Atalanta, and he made this challenge. "This is too easy, beating all these turtles. Race against me," he said. "If you are beaten, it will be no disgrace. Megarius is my father, whose grandfather was Neptune, and that makes me great-grandson of the king of all the oceans. Nor is my worth inferior to my race. Beat me, and you will have something to boast of." And this is Hippomenes. Listening, looking almost tenderly at that young man, she wondered in confusion, which would be better, to win or lose. What god, she thought, so hates the young and handsome he wants to ruin this one, tempting him to risk his precious life to marry me? I do not think I am worth it. I am not moved by his beauty, though I could be. I am moved because he seems so young. He does not move me, only his age. What of his manly courage, his nerve, his claim to proud descent, his love for me, so great a love that death, he claims, is an advantage if he cannot have me. Go while you may, O stranger, flee this marriage. There is too much blood upon it. Any girl would marry you, and wisely. Why do I care? Why worry for him when I have slain so many? Let him look out for himself, or let him die, since the death of all those others has not warned him, since life is such a bore. Is he to die because he wants to live with me? Is death to be the price of love? I shall be hated in victory. It is not my fault. Poor fellow, I wish you would forget it, but since you are crazy, I wish at least you could run a little faster. He looks like a girl, almost. I wish he had never laid eyes on me. He should have lived. If I were luckier, if the fates allowed me marriage, he was the only one I would have taken to bed with any pleasure." So Atalanta here has a a long discourse with herself, going back and forth between pitying, wanting to lose, maybe considering why she pities him, what she finds attractive about him. Atalanta was green in love, untutored. She did not know what she was doing, and loved, and did not know it. Meanwhile, the people and her father, restless, were clamoring for the race. Hippomenes called me in supplication. So remember, Venus is telling this story to Adonis. So this is Hippomenes calling to him. "Oh, may Venus be near, I pray, assist my daring, favor the love she gave me." And a gentle breeze bore this soft prayer my way. It moved my heart, I own, and there was little time to aid him. There is a field the natives call Tamasis, the richest part of Cyprus, which the ancients hallowed for me and built my temples there. And in a field there stands a golden tree, shining with golden leaves, and branches rustling with the soft click of gold. And golden apples are the fruit of that golden tree. I came from there with 3 such apples in my hand, and no one saw me except Hippomenes, and I told him how he should use them. The trumpets sounded the start. The pair, each crouching low, shot forward, skimming the sand with flying feet. So lightly they could run on waves and never wet their sandals. They could run on fields of grain and never bend them. He heard them cheering. "Go, Hippomenes! Lean to the work! Use all your strength! Go, go! You are sure to win!" I could not tell you whether the cheering pleased him more, or Atalanta. How many times, when she could have passed, she lingered, slowed down to see his face, and, most unwilling, sprinted ahead. And now his breathing labored, came in great, sobbing gasps, and the finish line was a long way off, and he tossed one golden apple, the first one, down. She looked at it with wonder. Eager to have the shining fruit, she darted out of the course and picked it up, still rolling, the golden thing. He gained the lead again, as the people roared applause. She passed him again, and once again lost ground to follow the toss of the second apple, and once more caught up and sprinted past him. "Oh, be near me, gift-bringing goddess, help me now!" he cried, and this time threw the third apple further, angling it off the course way to one side. She hesitated, only for a moment, whether to chase it. "But I made her do it," says Venus, "and made the fruit weigh more, so she was hindered both by the burden and by her own delay. To run my story quickly, as the race was run, the girl was beaten, and the winner led off his prize." So not only does Venus supply these golden apples for Hippomenes to throw during the race to distract Atalanta, who will go and pick them up, but Venus just straight up makes Atalanta go and fetch them. So like, why even have all the pretense? Just go ahead and cheat, Venus. Welcome, Mexican Robin. Hello. "Do not think, Adonis, he should have brought me incense, do you not think, Adonis, he should have brought me incense, or at least given me thanks? He did not. I was angry. Once slighted, I should not again be slighted. I told myself I would make examples of them. One day they were going by a temple, hidden in the deep woods. In ancient times, Echion had consecrated this to Cybele in payment of a vow. Their trip was long, and they were tired, or thought so, but I drove Hippomenes half crazy with the passion to take his wife. He saw beside the temple a dimly lighted cavern, roofed with rocks. A chapel it was, really, where the priesthood had placed for worship their old wooden idols. He could not wait. Here he took Atalanta, and the gods turned their eyes away. Cybele, the tower-crowned mother, had at first the impulse to drown them for their guilt in the Stygian waters, but that seemed much too easy. So their necks grew rough with tawny manes, their fingers hooked were claws, their arms were legs, their chests grew heavy, their tails swept over the sandy ground, and anger blazed in their features. They conversed in growling, took to the woods to couple. They were lions, frightful to all but Cybele, whose bridle and bit they champed in meekness. Do not hunt them, Adonis. Let all beasts alone which offer breasts to the fight, not backs, or else your daring will be the ruin of us both. So this story is interesting because it comes to a metamorphoses, right? A metamorphosis, and poor Atalanta and Hippomenes. So Hippomenes gets the favor of Venus, beseeches her for help in winning the race. Venus helps him, provides the golden apples, steers Atalanta to go and get them and lose the race. Hippomenes and Atalanta get married. They think everything is going to be happily ever after. But Hippomenes forgets to do proper thanks to Venus. Now, what have we learned throughout this book and every other story about giving thanks to the gods, especially when they do a really big favor for you? Don't forget to thank them. So Venus is pissed, as you do. And it just so happens that Hippomenes and Atalanta are walking past this ancient temple and its adjacent cavern where rites were performed, underground essentially. And Venus spurs on Hippomenes. He cannot wait. He has to have his wife right then. They go in there. They have sex. Essentially, they are desecrating a sacred space. All of the gods are mad, and they are transformed into lions. And again, Venus couches this story in one of the reasons why she's telling Adonis, her love, do not hunt wild animals who could actually hurt you. In this case, don't hunt lions, because they were people that I used to know. Okay. It is a reason. I don't know if it's a good reason, but it is a reason. Yeah. So then that leads into the story, sadly titled, The Fate of Adonis. Her warning was given, and the goddess took her way, drawn by her swans through the air. She has other things to do. But the young hunter scorned all such warnings, and one day it happened, his hounds, hard on the trail, roused a wild boar. And as he rushed from the wood, Adonis struck him a glancing blow, and the boar turned, and shaking the spear from the side, came charging at the hunter, who feared and ran and fell, and the tusk entered deep in the groin, and the youth lay there dying on the yellow sand, and Venus, borne through the air in her light, swan-guided chariot, still was far from Cyprus when she heard his groans, and, turning the white swans from their course, came back to him, saw from high air the body lying lifeless in its own blood, and tore her hair and garments, beat her fair breasts with cruel hands, came down, reproaching fate. They shall not have it always their way, she mourned. Adonis, for my sorrow, shall have a lasting monument. Each year your death will be my sorrow, but your blood shall be a flower. If Persephone could change to fragrant mint the girl called Mentha, Cinyras' son, my hero, surely also can be my flower. Over the blood she sprinkled sweet-smelling nectar, and as bubbles rise in rainy weather, so it stirred and blossomed before an hour, as crimson in its color as pomegranates are, as briefly clinging to life as did Adonis. For the winds which give a name to the flower, anemone, the wind flower, shake the petals off too early, doomed all too swift and soon. Poor Adonis. He hunted a boar, and it killed him. And so she turned him into the anemone flower. I admit I am not familiar with that flower specifically, but I guess it is red and only blooms once a year, I guess. I don't know. The wind flower. If anybody here knows a lot about flowers and stuff, definitely let us know. Oh, the squealing. Now, if you remember further back, so that's the end of book 10, and then we're going to go into book 11. That entire book, or maybe the last two books, were all Orpheus telling stories to other people. Some of those were stories within a story within a story, and now we get back to Orpheus, who we again read about, I don't know, weeks ago at this point. That nerd. Yeah, there's a lot of people just being turned into stuff in all of these stories. Yeah. And we jump right in, and again, we know, well, just about every one of these stories is sad. Not every single one, right? We have read a couple of stories that weren't sad. They still involve transformations, but they weren't all completely terrible. But when you start off book 11 with the section called The Death of Orpheus, well, you know it's not going to be super positive. So with his singing, Orpheus drew the trees, the beasts, the stones to follow, when behold, the mad Ciconian women, fleeces flung across their maddened breasts, their breasts are maddened, caught sight of him from a near hilltop, as he joined his song to the lyre's music. So again, way back, Orpheus was sort of wandering around, singing his songs, telling his stories. He had already failed in bringing his wife back up from the underworld, and some Maenads, some followers of Bacchus, were nearby, and now they have caught sight of him, and their breasts are maddened. One of them, her tresses streaming in the light air, cried out, "Look there! There is our despiser!" And she flung a spear straight at the singing mouth. But the leafy wand made only a mark and did no harm. Another let fly a stone, which even as it flew, was conquered by the sweet harmonious music, fell at his feet, as if to ask for pardon. But still the warfare raged. There was no limit. Mad fury reigned, and even so, all weapons would have been softened by the singer's music. But there was other orchestration. Flutes shrilling, and trumpets braying aloud, and drums beating of breasts and howling. So the lyre was overcome, and then at last the stones, reddened with blood, the blood of the singer, heard no more through all that outcry. Whew. Yeah, so different from sea anemones, this is apparently a flower called the anemone. I don't know. And I don't know which one came first. So this is a super cool note. So these maenads are wild, they're crazy about Orpheus. Because again, some of them had tried to get with Orpheus. Orpheus had refused them. So they start throwing spears and rocks at him. But Orpheus is so beloved by everything, and his music is so powerful that even in midair, these things avert their path so as not to harm him. And it's only that because the maenads are so loud with their flutes and their trumpets and their screaming that the projectiles cannot hear him singing and strike him down. He was a good bard, that Orpheus. All the birds, innumerable, fled, and the charmed snakes, the train of beasts, Orpheus's glory followed. The maenads stole the show. Their bloody hands were turned against the poet. They came thronging like birds who see an owl wandering in daylight. They bayed him down, as in the early morning hounds circle the doomed stag beside the game pits. They rushed him through the wands, wreathed with green leaves, not meant for such a purpose. Some threw clods, some branches torn from the tree, and some threw stones, and they found fitter weapons for their madness. Not far away there was a team of oxen plowing the field, and near them farmers digging reluctant earth and sweating over their labor, who fled before the onrush of this army, leaving behind them hoe and rake and mattock. And these the women grabbed, and slew the oxen, who lowered horns at them in brief defiance, and were torn limb from limb. And when the women rushed back to murder Orpheus, who stretched out his hands in supplication, and whose voice, for the first time, moved no one, they struck him down, and through those lips to which the rocks had listened, to which the hearts of savage beasts responded, his spirit found its way to winds and air. The birds wept for him, and the throng of beasts, the flinty rocks, the trees, which came so often to hear his song, all mourned. The trees, it seemed, shook down their leaves, as if they might be women tearing their hair. And rivers with their tears were swollen, and their naiads and their dryads mourned in black robes. The poet's limbs lay scattered where they were flung in cruelty or madness. But Hebrus River took the head and lyre, and as they floated down the gentle current, the lyre made mournful sounds, and the tongue murmured in mournful harmony, and the banks echoed the strains of mourning. On the sea, beyond their native stream, they came at last to Lesbos, and grounded near the city of Methema. And here a serpent struck at the head, still dripping with sea spray. But Apollo came and stopped it, freezing the open jaws to stone, still gaping. And Orpheus's ghost fled under the earth, and knew the places he had known before, and, haunting the fields of the blessed, found Eurydice, and took her in his arms, and now together and side by side they wander. Or Orpheus follows or goes ahead, and may with perfect safety look back for his Eurydice. Ooh, so a couple really cool little notes here. So which of them would make better Emperor's Children? Oh man. So these poor Maenads, driven just absolutely crazy. They're on the rampage, they throw a bunch of crap at Orpheus, then they see some farmers, the farmers run away, leave their cattle behind, or not the cattle, their oxen. The Maenads descend on the oxen, kill them, tear them to pieces. Then they turn back to Orpheus, and they tear him to pieces. His limbs are lying all over the ground. A river grabs the head of Orpheus and his lyre, and then as those things go floating down the river, the motion and the motion of the water make the lyre play and make Orpheus's head sing a tune along with it as it's floating down. It floats out to the ocean. It ends up on an island. It's attacked by a snake. Apollo saves it, and Orpheus's spirit again, yes, goes down to the underworld where he is reunited with his wife, and they can wander together forever throughout the underworld. Sad, yes, but there's, a little bit of a light at the end of that tunnel with the reuniting with his wife. But the story's not finished. Yeah, that river was really powerful. But Bacchus demanded punishment for so much evil. Mourning his singer's loss, he bound those women, all those who saw the murder, in a forest, twisted their feet to roots, and thrust them deep into unyielding earth. As a bird struggles caught in a fowler's snare, and flaps and flutters and draws its bonds the tighter by its struggling, even so the Thracian women, gripped by the soil, fastened in desperate terror, writhed and struggled, but the roots held. They looked to see their fingers, their toes, their nails, and saw the bark come creeping up the smooth legs. They tried to smite their thighs with grieving hands, and struck on oak. Their breasts were oak, and oak their shoulders, and their arms you might well call long branches, and be truthful. So again, we got to get that transformation in. And so these poor Maenads were transformed into oak trees as punishment for killing Orpheus. So now we go into the story of another character you might have heard of. You might be familiar with the name Midas. The story of Midas. And even this was not enough for Bacchus. He left those fields, and with a worthier band he sought the vineyards of his own Tmolus and Pactolus, a river not yet gold, nor envied for its precious sands. So again, we got a little foreshadowing going on. Yeah, the car care place. This is the origin of them. The throng he always had surrounded him, the satyrs, the bacchanals. Silenus, though, was missing. The Phrygian rustics found him, staggering under the weight of years, and maybe also from more than too much wine, bound him with wreaths, and led him to King Midas. Now this king, together with the Athenian Eumolpus, had learned the rites of Bacchic lore from Orpheus, and therefore, since he recognized a comrade, a brother in the lodge, he gave a party for 10 long days and nights, and then rejoicing came to the Lydian fields and gave Silenus back to his precious foster son. So Silenus is a character who's associated with Bacchus. Usually he's a satyr. Sometimes he's like he's like the foster father of Bacchus. He's just another one of these drunk animalistic characters who hangs out in the woods. And Bacchus, happy and grateful, and meaning well, told Midas to make his choice of anything he wanted. And Midas, never too judicious, answered, grant that whatever I touch may turn to gold. Bacchus agreed, gave him the ruinous gift. Sorry the monarch had not chosen better. So even the gods are constrained when it comes to revealing fate. Gods are constrained when it comes to oaths. Because again, oaths are really important. You may have heard me say that before. So again, essentially, Bacchus has promised Midas, I will give you anything you wish. Midas makes a very foolish wish, but Bacchus is forced to provide and make it true. Yes, the power of words. That's why, again, if you're a D&D player and you have access to the spell Wish, you better figure out your words correctly, write them out so you don't get raise misheard as raise. Yes, all of those things that we know from all of those stories. So Midas went his cheerful way, rejoicing in his own bad luck, and tried to test the promise by touching this and that. It was all true. He hardly dared believe it. From an oak tree he broke a green twig loose. The twig was golden. He picked a stone up from the ground. The stone paled with a light golden color. He touched a clod. The clod became a nugget. Awns of grain were a golden harvest. As if he picked up an apple, it seemed a gift from the Hesperides. He placed his fingers on the lofty pillars and saw them gleam and shine. He bathed his hands in water, and the stream was golden rain, like that which came to Danae. His mind could scarcely grasp his hopes. All things were golden, or could be at his will. A happy man, he watched his servants set a table before him with bread and meat. He touched the gift of Ceres and found it stiff and hard. He tried to bite the meat with hungry teeth, and where the teeth touched food, they seemed to touch on golden ingots. He mingled water with the wine of Bacchus. It was molten gold that trickled through his jaws. Midas, astonished at his new misfortune, rich man and poor man, tries to flee his riches, hating the favor he had lately prayed for. No food relieves his hunger. His throat is dry with burning thirst. He is tortured, as he should be, by the hateful gold. Now, in all of these mythologies, Greek, Roman, you name it, it's always interesting when we see value judgments, right? Because as a polytheistic religion devoted to all these different gods, all of these intricate forms of worship and who you have to honor, when and where, again, values are so different. That's why, again, I've talked about this before. It's hard to use words like sinner and divine punishment. Like, again, we in our modern world, a lot of those words, a lot of those concepts have such, well, Christian denotations to them, but it's really not connotations, denotations, but it's different sorts of values. But again, here explicitly it says, that Midas is tortured as he should be. And it's like, well, Midas did a good deed for Bacchus, right? He took care of Silenus, returned Silenus to Bacchus, was offered a boon that he could wish for anything he wanted. He made a poor choice, but does he deserve this punishment? I don't know. But here he says he is tortured as he should be. Lifting his hands to heaven, he cries, "Forgive me, Father! I have sinned. Have mercy upon me. Save me from this loss that looks so much like gain." The gods are kind, and Bacchus, since he owned his fault, forgave him, took back the gift. You need not be forever smeared with that foolish color. Go to the stream that flows by Sardis. Take your way upstream into the Lydian hills until you find the tumbling river's source. There duck your head and body under the foaming white of the fountain, and wash your sin away. The king obeyed him, and the power of the golden touch imbued the water, so that even now the fields grow hard and yellow, and that if that vein washes over them, to flood their fields with the water of the touch of gold. So yeah, and again, a very complicated last part right there, because we have greed is bad for sure, but yeah. So Midas is tortured as he should be, and then he beseeches the gods, and he says, they use the words here, I have sinned, have mercy upon me. So he's acknowledging that he did something wrong. And then it says, but then, interesting, the gods are kind, and Bacchus, since he owned his fault, so Bacchus is at fault, forgave him, Midas, so everybody's at fault here, and everybody's sorry, and then they move on. So now, going forward, let's see. Okay, let me do this next part, and then we'll talk a little bit about it, wrap it up. The next part is called Midas Never Learns. Now Midas, hating wealth, haunted the forests, the fields, and worshipped Pan, who has his dwelling in the mountain caves. But Midas still was stupid. And once again his foolish wits were destined to do their master damage. Where Tmolus looks out to sea, towering high, one slope falling to Sardis and the other slanting toward little Hypapa, Pan was singing tunes, tossing them off to the soft nymphs, and warbling a trill or two on the reeds joined with wax, remarking that the music of Apollo was poor beside his own, and offering challenge to an unequal contest, with Tmolus to be the umpire. So again, like all of these characters who sort of hang around with Bacchus, they're having fun, they're being silly. Pan was singing, and they say that their music is better than Apollo's. Oh, don't do that. So the ancient judge, seated on his own mountain, shook his ears loose from the trees. Around his dark blue hair, an oaken chaplet twined. Acorns hung down around his hollow temples. He looked at Pan. The judge is ready, he said, and Pan made music on the rustic reeds, and the barbaric song delighted Midas utterly. It so happened Midas was listening. Then old Tmolus turned to Apollo, and his forests followed as he inclined his gaze. Apollo's hair, golden, was wreathed with laurel of Parnassus. His mantle, dipped in Tyrian crimson, swept along the ground. His lyre, inlaid with jewels, with Indian ivory, his left hand held. His right hand held the plectrum. You could tell the artist from his bearing. With his thumb he plucked the strings, and charmed by that sweet music, Tmolus ordered Pan to lower his reeds, submissive to the lyre. And all approved the judgment of the holy god of the mountain, all except Midas, who began to argue, calling it most unfair. So now, number one, do you challenge the gods in challenges of skill? If that's like their main thing, Apollo playing music, playing the lyre? No. If a judge determines that the god has won, do you disagree with that judgment? No, you shouldn't. But Midas began to argue, calling it most unfair. Such stupid ears, Apollo thought, were surely less than human, and so he made them longer, stuffed them full of gray and shaggy hair, and made their base unstable, giving them the power of motion. So he's got long, wobbly, floppy ears. The rest of him was human. This one feature alone was punished, and he wore the ears of the slow-going jackass. So disfigured, ashamed, he tried to hide them with a turban, but when he had his hair cut, then his barber saw, dared not to tell, and wanted to, and could not keep matters to himself, no more than barbers today can do. And so he dug a hole deep in the ground, and went and whispered in it what kind of ears King Midas had. He buried the evidence of his voice, filled up the hole, sneaked silently away. But a thick growth of whispering reeds began to grow there. These, at the year's end, full grown, betrayed the sower, and when a light breeze stirred them, they would whisper, "Midas has ass's ears." You can still hear them. And that's the end of the story of Midas. Is it Daninator? Am I reading that correctly? Norse meat, a double entendre? It could be. So yes, a very odd story. Midas is cursed with being dim-witted. And hello, Keen456, welcome. Yeah, so Midas does dumb stuff. He chooses Pan to... He says that Pan was a better musician than Apollo. Again, not something you want to do. Apollo makes his ears grow, and he has the ears of an ass. He hides them in a turban, successfully, so the only person that ever knows that he has these ears is his barber, which Ovid goes out of his way to note that this barber can't keep a secret no more than barbers in my time can do. I don't know what Ovid has against his barber, or barbers in general, but kind of odd. And so the barber is just, he's got this secret in him. He's got to let it out in some way. So he digs a hole and whispers it into the ground, covers it up. Some sort of reed grows there that whispers when breeze goes through them, and it sounds like Midas has ass's ears. Now, I don't know what exactly this is referring to. Some sort of, obviously it's some sort of a reed, some sort of a close packed plant, so that if wind goes through it, it whistles in some way. That must sound like a lot of sibilance, I suppose. That's all I got for that one. Yeah. So turban. So yeah, Ovid is a Roman living in I forget what time he was living, like around the time of Augustus. So we're already into, yeah, the hair salon is a source of gossip. I mean, I guess so. He's straight up saying that barbers, that people essentially, yeah, that people tell barbers secrets, and that barbers have a hard time keeping those secrets. But yes, by this point, yeah, trade with Middle East, trade with Africa, yeah, all over the Greeks, and then Alexander, and then the Romans especially. Yeah, they've been all over that part of the ancient world. So yeah, definitely some fun stories that we got to go over today. And we will stop there. And next time, we dive into some stories relating to Troy and the Trojan War a little bit. The founding of Troy, and then we go on to some other stuff. Yeah. But yeah, we're getting toward the end. We are firmly in book 11. Okay, so what do we have? Story of Cuck Rage. Yeah, we'll have a lot to talk about when it comes to Troy and the Trojan War. If you missed our early on in my streaming career, we talked at length about the Iliad and then the Odyssey, but there's so much there to talk about, so much really, really good stuff. Okay, so looking at the week ahead, this afternoon, join me on Jessica Lynn Verdi's channel, at Jessica Nerdy, as we continue reading the Dune series. We are midway through Children of Dune, so we're on book 3. It's very exciting. So that's today, 5 p.m. Pacific, and we are in Pacific Standard Time. Take that, daylight savings. We made it. We're in PST again. No longer this PDT crap. Yes, reading. Well, you know, look, it's up to the viewers what they want us to do. And if there are incentives to have us do other crazy stuff, well then Well, then that can happen too. Yeah, daylight savings. Oh, I was just saying that to my son yesterday because I told him about how essentially I said while you were sleeping, we all did a little bit of time travel, and like that blew his mind. I was like, yeah, like we relived an hour of our lives and we got to do it over again. Totally blew his little mind. And he said, well, when are we going to time travel again? And I said, well, in a couple months when the time goes back. And I said, unless we get rid of it one day, which we really should because it's stupid. But for now, we do it. So yes, Dune today. Jessica Nerdy is the channel name. 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Tomorrow I will be back here in the morning for Toy Tuesday. I don't know what we're going to look at, but I'll find something cool. Maybe some more Star Trek spaceships. We haven't done that in a little while. And I can talk about some recent Star Trek developments. That could be. Wednesday will be Warhammer Wednesday. We'll do something then. And then Wednesday afternoon, we will continue with Myths and Video Games on Pete Wiz's channel, where we did start that Hades game, right? That's that game that we started. I'm so bad with video games. I believe that's it. Isn't that the one? The one that's all the rage right now? Everybody loves it? Yes. And that game is super cool. We had such a great time talking about all the characters in it as Pete was, as we were watching Pete's recorded playthrough. So yeah, we're going to continue with that on Wednesday. I'm very much looking forward to it because that game is beautiful and has just some really fun versions of these characters and fun sort of personifications and yeah, and dialogue especially. So I'm really looking forward to that. Thursday, as of now, I am still. There's music or something going on. I'm still planning on not streaming on Thursday, but we'll see what happens. I might pop in anyway. Friday will be figures, so we'll do some non-Games Workshop, non-Warhammer miniatures of some kind, and then that will lead us into Saturday, and we'll continue with our Saturday WarRoom Warhammer 40k show, and then Saturday night will be Homebuddies stream. I do not know what this week is going to be, but anyway, we have a very packed week of fun activities. Oh, and tomorrow is like some sort of important famous day. Something's going to happen. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think anything crazy will happen by the time I stream in the morning, but after that, who knows? Who knows? All these plans might be for naught. We'll see. Yes, if you haven't yet, I know many of you have. I have. Please vote. It's very important. It is far too late to send them by mail, so you either have to, if you have it in your house, go and drop it off in the correct place, or unfortunately go and vote in person. Please, please, please do it safely and carefully. Getting drunk is probably a good idea for tomorrow. I've seen a lot of people who are out already stocking up on things that they think they might need in case stores are closed and things are happening. I don't want to think too much about that. Please be safe. Please vote if you can. And hopefully we will all get through this together. And with that, let's see who is online, who's worth raiding. Yes, in unprecedented times, tacos are definitely a good thing. Let's see. All right, Hyper is doing something. I'm sure it's interesting, so we can check them out. Don't run around with scissors. Well, as long as you hold it the right way, I suppose if you have to, you can do that. But yes. Have a great Monday. Hopefully we see you for Dune later on this afternoon. And if not, hopefully I'll see you tomorrow for Toy Tuesday. Have a great one, everybody. Bye-bye. Say hi to Hyper. Tell him I sent you.